Welcome into another edition of Region Roundup. I'm James Boyd here with Mike Clark. Mike, as I always ask, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. We are making the transition on the Illinois side, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Football is over. Spring sports, which are called summer sports this year because we're cramming all of these sports into this tiny window, are underway. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. I went out to see my first high school baseball game in 2 years yesterday. So good to know that I can still keep score and know, what's going on. So that was fun. It was also, we're recording this on Wednesday. So Tuesday was 87, 88 degrees.
Hot.
So it was actually, a lot of times, as you know, from covering high school baseball and softball, you kind of think, well, it might not be a bad idea to be in the press box because it's so cold. Well, it was, I was invited up to the press box and I said, no, I think I'm going to stay outside because it's so nice out. And it's actually, I had to find some shade. So, so that was good. And, it feels more and more like, closer to normalcy. I mean, I won't say that we're there yet, obviously, but later today, as we speak, I'm going to be getting Pfizer number 2, so excited about that as well, hoping for no adverse reactions. And I know we've talked about this before, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here, but it is kind of interesting that, I've talked to a lot of people, and the side effects run the gamut from nothing at all to folks getting kind of laid up, feeling like they had a bad case of the flu. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But
it's better than COVID, so there you go.
It absolutely is, and I'm not. Even if it hits me a little bit, I'm not complaining at all because it's another step closer to a fall or a full rather. 2021, 2022 season of sports. So anyway, with all that being said, you wrote some interesting stuff this week and actually last weekend when you said you were taking off, but I know you were filing stories all the way through the weekend too. So nothing new about that. But what a wonderful story about Calumet quarterback Mark Flores, who you've written about quite a bit before. This program is, really elevated itself, and it's been through some tough times too. But what a great story about Mark Flores and his mom, especially heading into, I guess, Mother's Day in a couple of weeks. So, you can tell us how that kind of all came together.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Mark Flores, like Mark alluded to, he was a star quarterback and linebacker at Calumet. Last fall, they won their first sectional in program history. But aside from that, the column was basically about my relationship with Mark. I know him pretty well. It started off because of a tragedy. His teammate, C.J. Walton, passed away after being found in the school's pool unresponsive. I believe this was in 2019. Yes, because this was the year before the pandemic. And Mark balled out, later that week, the game right after that death, and dedicated it to his teammate. And now he's dedicating everything to his teammate and his mom, who passed away February 2nd. And she was 44, and she... the way he put it, she was his everything. And she had liver cirrhosis, and she also had a bout with COVID that ultimately, took her from her family. So, long story short, the story is basically about how Mark has persevered through an extreme amount of adversity and just tragic situations to earn a college scholarship to Kentucky State. HBCU, by the way. And he, believes that football scholarship came from his mom. So I talked to him about his mom. I could tell he was kind of hurting. I have a lot of these kids on social media, and he posted a long thing about her when she passed. And you never know what to say to anybody going through something like that, especially because I never lost a parent. So I don't know, how that feels. So all that being said, I try to respectfully give these kids an outlet to talk if they want to. And it's not like a random, oh, I heard your parent passed away. Can you talk to me? Like, I've known him for years before his mom passed. Like I put in the column, I prayed for him and many others to just stay focused. I know they have a lot of things that can kind of pull them away where they're growing up in Gary and with the circumstances they deal with. But, I gave him a chance to kind of just speak his mind on his whole high school career. I mean, he lost a teammate, and then he, had a season where he was wondering if they're going to play at all because Calumet didn't even start until about week 7. I think they were the last region team to start, if not one of the last teams to start back up during the pandemic. And, his senior year, he's a good football player. He's not a Division I football player, so it wasn't like he had all these schools clamoring to get him. He kind of had to play his way into, a scholarship. And how do you play your way into a scholarship without the season? So he had that weighing on him. Obviously, they did have a season. And like I said, they won their first sectional in program history. And then after that, he's trying to find a college scholarship and trying to find somebody to believe in him, give him a chance, and he loses his mom. So I just gave him a chance to kind of vent and shared part of why I, admire Mark and why I love him. It feels weird to say that out loud, I guess. But, I really do love all these kids, and I think that it shows in the work. And like I said in the column, I don't pray for them to win games. I personally don't think God ever cares who wins a game. I joke with my dad whenever my team wins or his team wins, we're usually rivals. It's like, Jesus was wearing my jersey today. But, in the grand scheme of things, though, I really, really want a lot of these kids who face some circumstances that a lot of us will never face in our lives to understand that they are still worthy of, success and opportunity. And I pray for him to get those opportunities. And now that he has one to go play football, I'm just praying and knowing that he's going to succeed, at the next level. And by succeed, I don't know if he's going to go out and become, one of the best linebackers. He was recruited as a linebacker. I don't know if he's going to be one of the best linebackers in school history or whatever. I mean, just getting a degree and carrying on, for his mom. So check it out. I encourage you all to do so. I got a lot of positive emails about it. People seem to like when I dive into people's lives outside of sports. It's funny, like the biggest sports stories are the one that seem to travel the furthest, Mike, besides like the big, obvious recruiting stories or, someone winning a state championship. It's usually the stories that, have a sports background, but expand beyond that into a person's life and the things that they've gone through and things like that. So I enjoyed it. Like you said, I was supposed to be off, and I wrote that during the midst of my second dose symptoms of the Moderna vaccine. Luckily, they weren't too bad. And honestly gave me something to do. I was sleeping all day. And so I got up and did one thing to feel good about myself. And that was the column. So there you go.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I think is useful to point out, people ask us, they ask me, I'm sure they ask you too, what stories are hard to do or what stories are easy to do or how do you do your job? I mean, I think people are curious about our jobs. And when you write a story like this, people, and there's some journalists even too, who kind of shy away from this stuff, and I think it's out of, coming from a good place, which is, I don't want to intrude on somebody's grief, but one of the things that I've learned over the years, and I've written a few of these stories as well, is that a lot of times folks want to share stories. They want to share their feelings when they lose someone who is so central to their lives, as Mark's mom was. It's I don't know. I don't want to get too deeply psychological into it or anything like that, but I mean, it is part of the process. It's a tough thing when you lose a parent who's 44 years old when you're a kid, because you don't think about the possibilities of that happening. And, uh, you know, you've written again about Mark and his leadership qualities. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't understand, you know, who may not be, you know, as close to the situation. I mean, you know, what Calumet has accomplished, you know, what Rick Good accomplished. You know, he is since left the program to go take over Lake Central. But, you know, it's a bunch of scrappy kids, basically, who banded together and pulled in the same direction and have achieved, you know, some pretty amazing things. And again, as you mentioned, you know, in the midst of losing a teammate, in Mark's case, losing the center of his life, you know, this is why we do this. You know, this is why our work matters, because these are the stories that people are going to remember. You know, I mean, you know, I talk about this, you know, sometimes it's like the individual games, you know, they come and go. And a lot of times, you know, there's not a lot of shelf life for those type of stories. I mean, it's not like we're going to stop doing them, because they're important too. And they're important in that we get out to see people and talk to people and get ideas for other stories. So, but the stories that linger, the stories that stick in folks' memories, are stories like this. And Mark Flores, I guarantee you, is going to remember this story for the rest of his life. He's 17, 18 years old, and he's not ever going to forget this. And a lot of people who read it are going to remember it too. And think about, you know, just what he's been through. And again, thank him for sharing his story, you know, for being willing to do so. We appreciate that. As you said, you know, when we do tell these stories, we are very conscious and very aware of the fact that this is a privilege for us to be able to shed a little bit of light on people's lives and on their stories, and we never ever take that for granted. So, yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. And again, you were busy over the weekend. One of the other stories that I know was reported a little bit earlier, but came out, was Craig Bazia's very, very busy spring. He wrapped up his tenure at Homewood Flossmoor as their football coach, and he was actually also in the midst of setting up his program at Crown Point, including bringing over Zach Wells, who has had a long history as a successful head coach himself at Merrillville before he went to HF to join Buzz, and now he's staying with Buzz, coming back to Crown Point, coming back to the Duneland, as it were. You know, kind of a crazy time for Craig, you know, but I mean, it's a good crazy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the most interesting thing he said to me about the whole transition was that, you know, if Crown Point administration wasn't okay with him finishing out his spring season at Homewood Flossmoor, he wouldn't have taken the job. So that kind of shows how much that program meant to him. And when you spend, you know, 10 years with the program, obviously it becomes a part of you. And for what it's worth, in all 10 years, he led them to the playoffs. And in Illinois, you have to qualify, so it's not always easy. And obviously his 11th season this past spring was different. There was no playoff, 6-game schedule, which for HF was actually cut to 4 because of COVID. You know, and even despite that schedule, I talked to a couple of his former players. They were really appreciative of him sticking around. I know the running back, Illinois State recruit Sean Allen, was telling me in his own words, you know, Coach Buzz showed us a lot of love by sticking around. And none of the kids were upset about it. I think they were kind of like, you know, this guy taught me so much about football, so much about not only winning on the field, but like winning in life and being prepared. And one of the things I didn't include in the story, but Sean and Miles Walton, the junior wide receiver, told me that Buzz is like a perfectionist. So if they messed the play up, he would run it over and over and over and over and over, Mike, in practice. And you see why his teams were so successful. So I had a chance to stop by Crown Point not too long ago and catch up with him and talk to him about how tough it was to end it at HF, but also how excited he is to start it up at Crown Point. He views Crown Point as the last stop of his coaching career. He's also coached in the region at Michigan City and Portage, led Portage to a Class 5A runner-up finish in 1994. So, he's well-respected across 2 states, and it is a big deal. I think that, personally, this was a home run hire for that program. I think you stated that. Other people have stated that. I mean, it's a good hire. And just being in Crown Point's weight room, which was actually my first time actually being in it. I've walked past it and seen how nice it is, but this is my first time actually stopping in. It's a beautiful facility. I know all their outdoor facilities are nice as well, top of the line. And they have a bunch of kids. And I think that they have all of the pieces to really become, a powerhouse in the DAC and possibly the state. I know people are probably going to think that I'm crazy, but, you give them time to get some kids in there and work with them. I think the sky's the limit for that program because they have everything else that you would want, So now it's just about getting your schemes together, getting the right personnel in there as far as players, and then, taking it and running with it. And it's not like Crown Point was a bad program anyways. I mean, they won their last sectional championship, I want to say was 2018, and they were – in 2019, they were, a point away from going to overtime with Maryville. So it's not like they've been a bad program. They've just been okay. And I think that he's, his goal is not to be okay. His goal is to be great. So the new, Crown Point athletes who are not new, but the kids who have him as their new coach are excited about it. I know I talked to the kicker, Sammy Brewer, who was getting it done in the weight room that day. Much to the liking of their training and weightlifting coach. I believe Miles Garrett. He's something, Mike. That guy is, I feel like all weight room and training guys at any level of like high school, college athletics is just kind of crazy, and you need that. That's a good kind of crazy. So all of that to say, I'm excited for the future at Crown Point. I believe that the DAC is the strongest conference in the region as far as football goes, and I'm just excited in general for that conference. I mean, you got Maryville, who's proven to be very, very good the last few years. Valpo, who's been the standard for not only the DAC but the entire region the last few years. And like I said, you got Rick Good going to Lake Central trying to get them turned around, and then you got Craig Buzia going to Crown Point. So you got some big time people coming in to lead these programs, and I'm just excited in general to see what's next. And he told me that this is his last stop, Mike. This is it. So I'm sure he does not want to end on a sour note. And even with the guaranteed playoff berths in Indiana, I think he wants a little bit more than just getting in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth mentioning too. He beat leukemia in the last couple of years.
Yes.
So that's been part of his journey at finishing up at HF. It was a good. It was. Well, I don't want to say it was a good thing because COVID was not a good thing in any way, shape, or form. But it was not a bad thing for him to not have to coach last fall because he was still getting his strength back, and he was able to coach this spring. Because he doesn't coach halfway, so he feels like he'd be cheating the kids, which he wouldn't be. But I mean, that's his mindset. He thought he would be cheating the kids if he wasn't able to go, full bore 100%. So, and he's 59 years old. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how long it lasts. I know that he is totally and 100% invested. Gotten to know him pretty well. He's region through and through. He went to Griffith, coached at Portage, coached at Michigan City.
Lives in
now
Hobart.
At Crown Point. Yeah, I mean, so this is a region guy through and through. Loves the region. Loves the history and the legacy of region football. I mean, he went again. He's from Griffith, which had the tremendous legacy under people like Les Thornton and then later Russ Radke. So anyway, it's going to be fun to see what Buzz does. And now even though basketball season is over, and I guess probably because basketball season is over, things are kind of shaking out a little bit. We've already had some coaching changes. David Prokop, Valpo assistant, takes over at lacrosse, where Preston Frame resigned, and Dominique Nelson resigned at Calumet. And again, it's one of the things that's going to be kind of interesting is there's two really big hires for Calumet coming up, to replace Dominique and to replace Rick Good, two guys who really changed the culture for their programs at Calumet. And it's going to be key for them to get the right people to come in to kind of build on what's there already, because there's a good foundation. And the one thing that, you certainly hope doesn't happen is, that things are not maintained to the level that they were under those two coaches. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the bottom line. I mean, just to give you all some insight into Coach Nelson, he led them to a sectional title in 2018, which ended an 18-year drought. They won the Greater South Shore Conference Championship or conference title the next year in 2019, which ended an 11-year drought. He was a two-time GSSC Coach of the Year. He was a Times Coach of the Year. And I mean, to me, you have to look at where Calumet is. They're technically located in Gary. And to be fair, they're not going to get the same kids as a Westside or a Bowman. I mean, just frankly speaking, even 21st Century now. So they're pulling from the same pool of kids and don't really always have the same amount of talent. But, I mean, anybody who's seen Coach Nelson coach, you know that he's always maximized the potential of what he's had. And in the 1 year that they did have some pretty special players, one of them being Davion Davis, who is now at IU South Bend. He, he was one of the better guards in the region, and they were able to win a sectional, and the following year win the conference. So they were a really good team when they had really good players, and even when they didn't have a lot of great players or college caliber players, they were still a respectable team. You couldn't just look at Calumet and say, "Oh, that's a win." Like, they were gonna, give you a game, and they're gonna play defense. They're gonna play hard, and Coach Nelson was gonna yell and scream and sweat on the sideline and get down in his defensive stance and be like that sixth man for them. So he was one of my favorite coaches from a coaching standpoint, from a personality standpoint, character standpoint. Every coach I talk to for every coaching story tells me they want to teach their kids to be young men or teach them to be young women and, life lessons and all that stuff. And it's definitely a cliche, which I don't mind, if you say that, I can't say you're not about that. And, I definitely included in the story after I get past the main quotes of why you took the job and why you resigned, things like that, because, that's the real story. But he is 100% true about being there for those kids. He's the type of coach, drop them off at home, give them something to eat, take them on trips. I think he was big on taking them to see different stuff. He took them to see Dwayne Wade's jersey retirement at Marquette. They got to see the university a little bit, and he just wanted them to see, like, there's more to life than, Calumet Township, than Gary, than Calumet. So I'm excited to see what's next for him. He said he's going to keep coaching. He just wants a fresh start, and he felt like he maximized what he could at Calumet. I don't think anybody could doubt that he helped change the culture and kind of give them an identity as far as being, like I said, that hard-working, hard-nosed team. And so it was fun talking to him. He was the type of coach, he would just call me randomly to talk about basketball. I'm a big basketball guy, so, I wasn't too surprised every couple of weeks if I got a call from Coach Nelson just asking how I'm doing and what I'm thinking and things like that. And one of the things that I appreciated that he would advocate for any kid around the region, So every time I send out all area forms or ask for suggestions, some coaches will legitimately give me all 5 of my players are all first team. And I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. But he told me, hey, I don't know, have you seen this kid? You should go check him out. He's pretty good. I coached him over the summer for my, summer program where I saw him play against us, and he seemed like he was pretty good. So he was a really, solid, fair coach. I think that, he obviously there's going to be moments where you butt heads with the kid, but he was stern, man. I think he was fair. but he loved you. Like, he wasn't going to be a pushover, but he loved you. So, like I said, I'm excited to see where he goes. And then the same thing with Coach Procrop over at Lacrosse. I know he's excited about that. He was really tough on him to leave Valpo, and especially Valpo Unified, which helps out kids with intellectual disabilities to participate in sports. He's kind of been like a pioneer for that program. And really, now you're seeing more pop up in the region. I talked to him about how Portage has a unified sports program now, and in Hobart and others. So it's becoming more and more of a thing in the region, which I'm very happy about. And he was saying he's already thinking about trying to get it started over at Lacrosse as well. So he's a really good guy as well. Down to earth, as real as they come. And I think that both of those guys, obviously one leaving, one stepping into a new role. Whatever happens next will be good for them. And I'm excited just for Procrop in general, because he told me he loves the Lacrosse 1A, unique gym vibe. So, it's not always attractive to other people, but he was saying I kind of like the 1A vibe because it's a true community thing, and I got a taste of that with Couch's run this past year. I mean, if you're able to turn a program around and even have, you don't have to go to state to get loved in the PCC. You basically just have to be in the PCC. So, I mean, as long as you're invested as a coach and you're trying, whether, wins, losses, whatever, they're going to support you. They're going to back you. So I'm excited for him to join the PCC. And, basketball, like you said, it's kind of ended, but it's always this year-round thing. And this is the time of year where you see some of those coaching changes. And this is when I tweet at John Harrell to update his coaching list and things like that. And I thank him as well for being, the guy who keeps me in check as far as who's going where.
Right. And as mentioned earlier in the pod, I just wrapped up Illinois football season last weekend. Went out to see TF South in their finale. TF South finished 4-2, lost to Lamont in the finale. And it was one of in this COVID year, they did something a lot of teams didn't. They played their entire 6-game schedule, and they played every game that they were supposed to play that was on the original schedule. As you mentioned, with HF, they played 4 games. A lot of teams wound up playing incomplete schedules because either they were on COVID pause or their opponent was, and they couldn't get a game. And some of the teams that did play 6 games, like Loyola, which wound up being the number 1 team in the state, wound up having to pick up 2 opponents on the fly. So TF South playing all 6 scheduled games, that was a victory in and of itself. They have a few kids going on to college. Their quarterback, Isaiah Lewis, is going to Milliken. Their linebacker, Chris Cox, is going to Upper Iowa, which is Division II. Wilson Buckley, who's one of their running backs, is going to Lake Forest College. They got a few other kids that are still kind of wrapping things up, in this crazy COVID recruiting season. As I said, I went out to see some baseball yesterday, which was great. It's Illinois' sports have been different from Indiana's. As everybody who's listening to this, I'm sure knows, Indiana missed the last spring season. It is basically plowed through, with last fall, winter, and into spring now. And it's been much different in Illinois. They contested low-risk sports last fall, which were golf, tennis, swimming, cross-country. And then that was it until January, when the IHSA and the Illinois Department of Public Health, finally came up with a framework for doing sports. And again, it's kind of nuts, because between the end of January and the middle of June, they're going to cram every other sport in.
It gets crazy.
And nobody gets a postseason except for the spring sports, which didn't have one last year.
Right.
So there will be a baseball state tournament. There will be a state track meet. And those are good things, obviously. But everybody is still kind of it feels like a whirlwind. A lot of coaches, because of the way the schedule came out, there were a lot of coaches who were coaching two sports, kids who were playing two sports, who had to make decisions. Nobody's complaining about, the kids are not complaining about being athletes because, as kids just want to play.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Right. It's as simple as that.
They want to get out there. They want to hit a baseball. They want to shoot a basketball. They want to throw a football. They want to run a 100-yard dash. All these things that seemed up in the air and maybe not going to happen. So it's been a great thing to see the joy of kids, just being out there with their friends. Especially the seniors, obviously. I've talked to a bunch of seniors since sports restarted, and the opportunity that their senior year, in many cases, has been not anything like they would have expected. A lot of kids spent almost the entire year in remote learning, sitting in front of a computer, not seeing their friends every day in the classrooms and the hallways, not seeing their teachers except on a screen. Prom is another big thing, obviously, for seniors. It looks like there's going to be a prom for TF North and TF South. It's not going to be a traditional prom, but they're going to work. I talked to the superintendent, actually, of the school district, and I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but it's all part of the high school experience.
Yeah,
sports,
sure.
Sports, prom, athletics, and as we get toward the end here, we're recording this on April 28th, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, graduation's right around the corner.
Yeah.
And there will be prom. As I said, there are sports, so it's a great thing that the kids are getting a chance to experience some of the traditions that everybody took for granted. When you and I were in high school, me a lot longer ago than you, but you think about all these things, and it's just part of your senior year. It's something that you look forward to, and I think about the athletes in particular, and I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but it's like a lot of these kids, as grew up going to games. It's like whether it's West Side basketball or Andrean baseball or Valpo football. All these kids grew up going to games and dreaming about their senior years, about, man, that's going to be so great when I'm a senior. And, it's going to be so much fun. And to have the possibility of that taken away was a tough thing. But again, they're getting as much of an experience as they can. So, and that kind of segues into our next segment, which is about some senior basketball players who are going to an all-star game.
Yeah, so I wanted to get this in. This actually, I think, just got announced, I believe, today. This will be the game will be Saturday. It's the 16th annual Hoosiers Reunion All-Star Classic. For those of you who are, I guess, clueless, obviously the Hoosier Classic is at the Hoosier Gym. The famous one from the film and all that type of stuff. So it's a pretty big deal for anybody who grew up in the state of Indiana who got selected to this team. So it's fun. Part of me wishes I could go just to see the gym and see it. And I think someday down the line I'll have to check that off my bucket list. But as far as the players selected, we had 2 seniors from the region on the girls' side and 2 on the boys. The 2 on the girls' side were Courtney Blakely and Trinity Thompson. Obviously, Courtney Blakely led the state in scoring at 31.7 points per game because I wrote so many stories about her, I memorized it. And we also had Michigan City's Trinity Thompson, who averaged a double-double and dominated, for the second straight year. The girl was basically a walking 20 and 15 for the last 2 years, and she's going to Northern Kentucky for college. Courtney Blakely will be going to Middle Tennessee State. And then on the boys' side, we had Chris Mantis from Lowell. He's going to Appalachian State, all-time leading scorer at Lowell. Indiana All-Star snub, as some people put it. But he's a great player. I'm glad that, obviously everyone wants to be the Indy All-Star. He didn't get a chance to do that, but this is also still a big nod. And then the one surprising one was Mason Nicholson from Westside being selected to participate in this game. I'd expect to see, Kwamari Peterson or Krishan Christmas, but I think for Mason, this could be a good opportunity for him to just be seen by some coaches. He had a foot injury that kind of messed up his senior year, where he wasn't able to really be himself when he came back. And I think that by now he's probably fully healthy and he'll have a chance to kind of show these lower Division I coaches or even some Division II or JUCOs that he can play. He's a very formidable player in person. I think I used the word gargantuan in my article about him not too long ago. Now, I don't think I've ever used that word ever for anybody else, but he is gargantuan. If anybody is, it's him. He's 6'10" and close to 300 pounds. He's a big player, and he's mobile. He's very raw, but at the same time, like I said, it's to be a great audition for him to hopefully get a chance to play at the college level.
And let's not forget he's a good musician too. So.
That too. He said he plays the clarinet. I'm still working on getting some video of this because I think that he would just be the biggest person ever in the music room. And I also have to wonder, does it take less effort for him to play the clarinet because his lungs are so big? I don't know. So, it's cool that he got a chance to go. Some other notables, just to mention real quick, on the boys' side, they'll have Luke Good, who's the Illinois recruit. And then they also have Caleb First, who was Mr. Basketball. And they also have, I believe, Brooke Barnsheiser and a couple others that you can check out the list. I believe it's on Twitter now. I was looking for a while, when are they going to put this list out? Because they were announcing each kid at once. And I'm like, okay, does that mean the list is over? Am I going to get officials ever? Then on the girls' side, we also had Jayla Smith, who was the Miss Basketball, and then we also got Allie Becky from Brownsburg, who played against Crown Point in the state championship. She's a star. She's going to Ball State. So there's some other big-time players on both sides. Tickets are sold at the door, surprisingly. I was a little surprised to see that. So, check it out. This is, again, this Saturday. The girls' game is at noon. The boys' game is at 4. That's Eastern time. So, I'm excited for them to have that opportunity. And it's a great way to kind of cap off your senior year. What better way to kind of get a tour of such a historic gym and also to play against some of the state's best. So, on that note, that's all I have for this week. We'll check in next week, and hopefully, by that time we'll have more to talk about, which I'm sure we will. And, until then, stay safe, keep wearing your mask, and get vaccinated, people. It's a lot easier now. I know in Chicago, where a lot of my family is, they even have, walk-in appointments now. So, take advantage of it and do whatever you can to keep yourself and your family safe.